Happy New Year. Welcome to On Air with Dr. Pete and welcome to 2026. It is hard to believe that it's a brand new year already, but who cares? Because each moment is a new moment anyway. It doesn't matter what year it is or what day it is. 2025 may have been heavy, but each year brings its own challenges. And this year, hopefully, things will go the way you want them to go. And if not, that's okay. But what better way to do that than with beloved grandmas? And that's going to make sense in a minute. You might be like, wait, what am I talking about? But we are thrilled to have the creator and one and only of the one and only Grandma Stand to the show. You might be wondering, what is the Grandma Stand if you don't know what it is? But imagine a lemonade stand, but with an extra special and incredibly meaningful twist. Mike Matthews came up with this idea for the Grandma Stand back in 2012, honoring his beloved grandma Eileen. Since then, the simple idea of spreading joy has truly taken off. And I can't wait to hear more about this. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is so cool. The Grandma Stand. Just explain it for somebody who's like, what is that?
I mean, you did a pretty good job. But basically, like, it's a lemonade stand on a street corner where a grandma sits on one side and there's an empty chair on the other. And then anyone that's walking by can literally just sit down and talk to a grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, how did that start? Like, maybe tell me about Eileen. Like, tell me about Grandma Eileen.
Oh man,
yeah.
I thought about her a lot actually this week.
Yeah.
Grandma Eileen lived until she was 102 years old, and so from 2012 to 2018, she did the Grandma Stand with me. She was the only grandmother. It was just me and her.
Okay.
And so she lived with my parents in the Seattle area, and Grandma Eileen is one of those people. If you know, if you know someone in your life where they can kind of meet you at any emotion. So if you're feeling sad, spiritual, happy, joyous, depressed, she can meet you in wherever you're at. And even in the same kind of conversation, she can be crying with you and laughing with you. And she had that unique ability that we've seen, especially in grandmothers, which is like she would just be full of empathy.
Yeah.
Ask you really good questions, and she'd be present with you.
Yeah.
And so she's just one of those people that I knew kind of was for the world and not just for our family. We didn't deserve her in some ways.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I saw how my friends reacted to her. I saw how the neighbors, people that are 40 years old, mothers of 3 kids would come over and spend time with her. And you would think, oh, that's nice. You're spending time with my grandma to, taking care of this kind of widow. It's the opposite. They were getting so much more out of it than her. Yeah. She was exhausted by the time they'd leave. And so I noticed this about her. I'm like, this is a really special grandma. And she's tiny. She was so small, and she's kind of radiant skin. Everyone would always comment on how young she looks and everything else. And she just was one of those people that you just wanted to hear her giggle. Like, she had the most unique giggle. Yeah. And I have that recorded in all these conversations with people that I love to just like replay on, like, just voicemails that I still have of her and that kind of thing.
Cool. So she was in Seattle, and then because you're in New York, so we're on the East Coast. We were talking about that a little bit. So eventually, like, she came to you, and that's how this all started. Or, like, can you give us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah. Like, the origin story was my grandma was at a point in her life. She was 96 and she couldn't really travel anymore. And she hadn't been in New York and to visit me, and she really wanted to, and she wanted to meet New Yorkers and everything else. And so I had that in the back of my mind. I'm like, how can I get my grandma? I was trying to convince her for years. I'm like, I'll pick you up in a taxi. I'll rent a car. I'll drive you everywhere. We'll literally walk outside the car, get outside the car, look at Rockefeller Center, and then get right back in the car. Like, I'll make it so easy. And couldn't do it. And I understood it. She's 96. And so what I ended up doing was I had that in my mind. And then one day I was in my office, and I had a coworker from Brooklyn. She's just like hipster, like wore all gold jewelry. Like, she was just so cool. And she never really showed a lot of underbelly. You didn't really know who she was because she was cool. Yeah. She came into my office and she said she'd broken up with her boyfriend after 5 years, and she started to cry, and I've never seen her like that. And I didn't have the right things to say to her. And I just had this thought of, like, I said, I know this sounds crazy, but my grandma lives in Seattle. She is, she's really a listener. and I
Yeah.
wrote down her landline, and then I kind of slid across the desk to her, and
Yeah.
the coworker just said, like, "That's the weirdest thing that anyone has ever, like, asked me to do. Like, call your grandmother, who I've never met, and talk about a breakup."
Yeah.
And I just said, like, "I know it sounds crazy, just, like, give it I don't know, maybe give it a try if you
Yeah.
feel up to it." And it just so happened that was on a Friday, and it just so happened that over the course of the weekend, she got to a place
Wow.
where she called her and,
Did
called
you
my
warn your grandma? Did you like, grandma?
I had 0 expectation that it would happen,
Yeah.
and I also, and the funny thing is my grandma never told me she called. Like,
No.
I never heard from my grandma
Because they
about
keep secrets too.
Yeah, it's a lockbox. Like, she will not share, and so
Yeah.
another incredible thing about my grandma, she doesn't get in the
Yeah.
middle of a lot of
No,
the
no
things going
drama.
on, and
Yeah.
so my coworker comes in on Monday morning, kind of bebopping into my office and just says, like, "I feel lifted.
Oh my
I
goodness.
feel like everything's gonna be okay." Like, talking talking to my friends, my 30-year-old friends in Brooklyn about a
Yeah.
breakup is
Yeah.
helpful, and my friends are great. It
Yeah.
just wasn't the same as talking to your grandma Eileen.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
just something about the disarming nature of a grandmother and the perspective that they
Yeah.
have. And
Yeah.
so she and my grandmother talked for like 6 months, like an hour every week.
Yeah.
And so they formulated this really cool friendship. And I'm like, who would have thought this 30-year-old Brooklyn hipster and a 96-year-old grandmother across the country would become so connected?
Yeah.
But I thought, I know Eileen. I think it's possible.
Yeah.
And so that was a little of the genesis of, like, I literally could go on Etsy, buy a lemonade stand, put it on a street
That was
corner.
your first thought?
One of, yeah.
Wait, what industry are you in when you're in this office that she walks into? I'm curious about that now.
I mean, I do social media marketing full time. That's my full
Okay.
time
Okay.
gig.
Well, I think that helps though. That's why you saw a lemonade stand. Okay, that helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a creative brain.
Yeah, I like to think so. I like
Yeah.
to be like it. I'm really good at. Maybe you feel this way. Like, I can't market anything about me very well. Like nothing. But when it
But you
comes
can
to
for other people.
individuals that are good for the world or can do
Yeah.
something, your mind kind of explodes with creativity on, like, they need to be heard or seen or kind of
Yeah.
experienced. So yeah.
Was
And
Grandma Eileen? Wait, was Grandma Eileen? Was she born? Where was she born?
she was born in Maryland.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious if there's any kind of like, because you called her like, so the brain creates all these stories. So you said she was really small with this like really vibrant skin. So I'm like, is she like a little old Italian lady? Is she a little old like Jewish grandmother? Like, sort of, what would
No.
her cultural identity be in that?
Very proper English, kind of English parents, and then has that kind of East Coast, you dress up nice, you look
Yeah.
presentable when you go outside. So moving to the West Coast to live with my parents later in her life, this is
Yeah.
in her late 80s, she moved in with my parents. Definitely like, oh wow, everyone's wearing Kirkland signature shirts, and like there is a little, like, Grandma Eileen is imperfect, a little judgment there on, like, the
Sure.
casual nature of the West Coast, if you will, and
Yes.
but that's very much her.
Wait, so from this coworker, then at some point, Grandma Eileen was like, "Okay, Mike, I will come to New York." Or did that ever not happen? Or like, how did that not happen?
It never happened.
Oh, so my brain created that story. Okay.
Yeah. So what I ended up doing was she did this virtually. So I put a laptop on top of the lemonade stand
Yeah.
and noise cancellation headphones, because it was New York City, and then an empty chair. So just one side. And then just had my grandma on FaceTime and a big sign that just said, "Talk to my 96-year-old grandmother." And I had these little discussion prompts in a little bowl. And then that was it.
That is really, really, listening is such an important part of daily conversations. And I think in today's world, we don't get as much of that. We're all just like pushing away distractions, because it's hard to truly listen. So how do so like, where is this at today? Because now it's Grandma Eileen. It's not, right? She's not like, so how there are multiple grandmas, or like, how do they show up, and like, what is it like? How do they do this with the booths today?
So today it's all in person.
Yeah.
So kind of retired the grandma stand in 2018, and then about 2 years ago, kind of revitalized the grandma stand, painted it bright purple, which is my grandma's favorite color.
Aww.
And then I just asked a grandma that I knew in my community here in New York, who I had those same kind of qualities. And this grandma was very nervous about doing this. I showed her a video, and then
Yeah.
she's like, "Okay, I'll try it." And we went out to Central Park, and then she was in love. She's like, "This is I will do this every day if you ask me." She loved it so
Wow.
much, and she was so good for people. So Grandma Connie is her name.
Yeah.
And then since then, people will come up and just say, "Hey, my grandma would be perfect for this," and
Wow.
then we'll get on Zoom with the grandkid and the grandma and just discuss, answer their questions, and then we'll just set up a time for them to come and do it. And so now there's about, I'd say about 20 or so grandmas in New York City that are kind of on rotation. And then we're always new grandmas. Bring them.
So
We'll always
so
take the grandmas.
so if you're listening and you have a grandma, contact Mike, or
Yeah,
we'll,
absolutely.
we'll,
Just,
we'll
yeah.
get that to the end. So how does that scheduling work? Because I'll this is a little. My Zen teacher is 93, and he still sits down on Zen cushions, and it's like really amazing. Like I am always impressed by. Uh, and I was raised to respect the elder, and like I just think it's and I'll tell you about my grandma a little bit, but how technology is not his friend. So I'm thinking like computer noise canceling headphones and schedules of 20 grandmas at the grandma stand. How does that work?
They do a pretty good job. I mean, the New York grandmas, especially, are pretty resilient. Like,
Yeah, of course.
even with weather, I mean, we're outside, right? So it's like, I got to make sure these grandmas are safe and warm and all those things. And so when they're out there, like the grandmas in New York are like, if it's below like 30 degrees, we'll talk
Yeah.
about it. But otherwise, I'm good to go. I got a parka. And they have no issues going out, and I'm like, "Are you sure you're okay
Yeah.
with this?" So, so yeah, I mean, a lot of times I'll text with like one of the grandkids to coordinate
Okay.
a lot of the schedules of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
But the really, and then of course, we'll have a 501(c)(3) nonprofit, so I'll kind
Yeah.
of pay for the Ubers to kind of get them to
Yes.
locations and back to home.
Nice.
But they just have to show up for 2 to 3 hours,
It's so cool.
and it's all set up for them. They don't have to worry about the technology. They don't have to worry about anything else. Just sit down.
And
And
talk.
the beautiful thing, that's
Yeah.
whoever's in front of them is all they care about. They don't care about anything else.
So this is it always in the same spot in New York?
No, always a different location. So that's the fun
Ah,
part.
I love that.
Is I'll go on Instagram and I'll post a story and I'll just say our location will be
Yeah.
wherever. And it can be in a park, it can be in a plaza, it can be on the street corner,
Yeah.
subway, it can just kind of be anywhere.
So
So
so you started in New York, but now you're in how many cities?
we're in Denver, Colorado, McKinney, Texas, Omaha, Nebraska, Larchmont, New York. And then in the process, like literally like materials are like ordered and on the way, is, let's see, Irvine, California, Salem, Massachusetts, College Station, Texas, Mazatlan,
Wow.
Mexico, Victoria, BC, Canada, and Berlin, Germany.
So
Um,
cool.
so those are all
That
kind of
is really
getting
cool.
ready to go. Yeah. Yeah.
So I have another thought, and so Lee didn't write this up, so she might be mad at me, and I hope it's okay if I go off script a little bit. But I'm thinking. So my grandma was Chicky, and that was my old younger Italian grandma. She
Mhm.
was just sounds a lot like Eileen. Like she was non-judgmental. She was this really small, like loving, just you're throwing food in your face, listening, caring. Um, so the other grandma, Nana, was also in the same way, but like very different, a little bit more cold, and she was actually called the boss. So like I'm sitting here thinking like, was was there another grandma in your life? Were they very different? Because families are complicated, and Grandma Eileen had this thing, and I wonder like what were other grandmas like that you've experienced?
That's a really good observation and comment, because I only had one grandmother alive during
Okay,
Grandma Eileen's period of this,
sure.
but I do have another grandmother who had passed who is a lot more like the latter. It's a little more
Yeah,
strict, a lot more just,
yeah,
just buck it up. Just the kind of a
yeah.
little more of that
Totally.
attitude that you're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah,
And so, but what I often hear from people is, I have a grandmother who's alive right
yeah,
now. I can
yeah.
call her, but I got a lot out of this. And I'm like, and I
Uh,
asked some questions about that. Like,
mm,
tell me about your grandmother, and how come you don't ask them these questions or have these discussions? And they said, well, I'll always, often hear there's judgment,
yes, totally.
there's lectures, and there's just listening. There's just the
Yeah,
art of listening is just not there. I love my grandmother. We have amazing meals. I love going there for the holidays, but as far as like really going in depth on her listening to me and vice versa, it's really, really difficult. And
yeah,
so that's a really cool challenge, I think, for us, because I think there's sometimes, and this is why we have these discussion prompts too that we
Yeah.
bring up, is maybe give it a try. Ask your
Yeah.
grandma some questions beyond just how's the weather, how are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe just dig a little bit more and see there's more there once the trust is there. But
Yeah.
having said that, I understand that not all grandmas are perfect. They're
Yeah.
not all Grandma Eileen's.
Yeah.
There is some difficulty there. But I do think that having that intergenerational connection is so critically
Totally.
important. So whoever can serve in that role for you of a certain age
Yeah.
is important. You have to seek them out sometimes when they're not blood.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great projects around that, like at assisted living facilities where you bring in like high school kids, and
Mhm.
I know like in the church you'll have like so at Fordham University, not far, well, not that far from you, but they'll have the college kids come to talk to the old priest, in the nursing home there, and so those are all. It's really it's important for everybody. That's my Zen teacher is a Jesuit, so he's up in Fordham, and that's why I know that. So it's like I think that's part of what keeps them going too.
Yeah.
Like you said, Grandma Eileen was tired after, but she had purpose, and that's important to have purpose. And so these grandmas, you're giving them purpose. So like, I don't know if you actually said this, but like, how do you have about 20 in New York
Mhm.
that are in switching around, but how do you find them? These incredible grandmas.
Yeah, I think people will come up and they'll just say like, my goodness, my grandma would love this. And
Yeah.
so they're filtering for you. They're kind of
Okay.
qualifying the grandma a little bit. And then
Yeah.
it's pretty evident within, the first 2 minutes of a Zoom call with the grandkid and the grandma, if it's like a good fit, like
Yeah. Yeah.
these are volunteer grandmas. I'm not so overly particular. This isn't like a strict process of things.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is, I notice that if they're asking me questions and kind of they're not defaulting on just talking the whole time. And,
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not what New Yorkers are looking for because of those discussions.
Yeah.
This is what my grandma does, where I'm just like, I just wanted to tell you about this new job or this breakup or something.
Yeah.
And then you went right into telling me about your life. And I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And so that's the qualifying nature of the grandkid seeing how this works and then
Yeah.
saying the grandma will be perfect. So most of the time it's always been like a natural fit.
Yeah.
And the other cities that are now hosting the grandma stands, they do it their own way.
Yeah.
So one in McKinney, Texas, they actually work with like assisted living, and they bring in people
Beautiful.
from the assisted living facility.
Yeah.
In Denver, it's a grandmother who literally started the grandma stand and carries it into, which I keep telling her, please get help, but she carries it into this park in Denver.
Yeah.
And she's the only grandma. So each week she does it as the kind of staple grandma there. And so everyone kind of does it a little bit differently.
Yeah, which is nice. It's nice to have diversity in that. I really love it. I mean, this is obviously, from your heart, and you also have a full-time job, and so I'm curious, why is it so important then just to keep, the grandma stand going, since Grandma Eileen passed in 2018?
Yeah, my wife and I talk about it a lot. It does
Yeah.
take some time. My wife runs a hospital, and we have kids, and so it's just it can be a little time intensive. I try and balance things out by going out once a week at least.
Okay.
So we'll go out once a week, make sure we're balanced with things. Sometimes twice if the weather's really nice, and and I'm starting to be more open to like people that want to help with things. So that's been nice too. But I think the motivation for me is, my grandma said it extended her life. Like it just gave her
I think so.
purpose.
Yes.
Like you said, she said
Yes.
it's really fun, but I just have values sitting. And she had a really good social network, not like most grandmas don't.
Yeah.
She had a really good social network. And even with that, it was really isolating to be sitting in, her room in my parents' house, and they're working. And, there was this, I saw the value in that. And so I felt that from my Grandma Eileen, just how many grandmas could you get involved to make me feel like this?
Yeah.
And that aren't in this great situation where they're being taken care of by, their kids and that kind of thing. And then on the flip side of that, for the not beyond the grandma's value, which is also just like why I started it again 2 years ago, which is I think every friend of mine I was feeling had like conflict in some rupture in their family. Political discourse was not going over great. Job loss, job insecurity, all those things. And I was walking in Central Park, and I just thought, wow, every one of my friends is struggling, and I have some hard things going on too. And I just thought, I can sit back and kind of wallow in the darkness and we just talk about it, or just push back with some light and some good.
Yes,
And so I'm like, all right, the grandma stand's perfect for that.
it really is.
When you think the world's going to end, you didn't live through World War II. When you thought the
Amen.
world was going to end, and you're here and you're okay, right? Like those
Yeah,
things. And so bringing it back and the motivation to continue doing that,
yeah.
I think is just that. The more grandmas that are involved, and then the amount of the thousands of people that it touches too is pretty incredible and very satisfying for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Grandma Eileen mentioned to you that it was about gave her purpose, and why else is it important for you around seniors? I could talk about the science around it, but for you, why are you so focused on supporting and helping elders kind of grow and go into that stage of their life?
I've seen what it does mentally and physically when they have purpose.
Yeah.
I've seen what it does when and I also think the idea that when you have such a strong dichotomy of generations getting together where their phones are not out, they don't care about
Oh,
social media or fame,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
not caring about all the things that we're caring about.
yeah,
And they don't, and if literally like their phone's not going to ring, they're not going to get distracted, they're right there and present with you.
yeah.
I think watching that and the value add for both is pretty incredible. And
Hmm.
so that really, as much as I want to say I can be present,
Yeah,
I still am thinking about 10 things right
yeah,
now. You know,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know what I mean? It's just impossible.
yeah.
Our brains are programmed. Whereas a grandmother will sit there and literally the only thing she cares about is who's in front of her and who they really are. That's
It's
it.
so
There's nothing
beautiful.
else.
Yeah.
And they don't care about any follow up of things. If they choose to follow up with it, just that's it.
It's
And
just
so,
it's simple.
yeah,
We really complicate it. I say that a lot in this podcast. Like humans complicate it, and New Yorkers we really complicate stuff. So I know the grandma stand's very active on social media, and you have this grandma topic of the day. So how do you pick that? When the stand is out.
I what I'll do is I'll kind of just sit back and think of kind of what's going on in the world, how
Mm,
conversations with friends and family, and I'll go and I'll think of like four different discussion prompts, and I'll put it on Instagram, like an Instagram story poll, and I'll let people choose which one do you want to do this week, and so
mm,
they'll vote on their favorite prompt for that particular week, and then I'll handwrite the question prompt on these two big sandwich boards to the
yeah.
left and the right of the grandma stand, and so people can see the question prompt, and then they have time to process their response, and then they share that with the grandmother. Um, and so that's it. I kind of like think of the
Yeah.
four, and then people kind of vote on which one.
Well, it makes sense because of your marketing background. So I'm glad I asked that because it's nice. It's nice to see how we use all parts of our brain. And so Grandma Eileen, she lived till she was 102, like you said. And that's just so impressive and good genes, and it's incredible. What do you think she would think of this today?
I think she would think. I know what she would think. Yeah, she would absolutely be embarrassed that her image is kind of used on the grandma stand itself. If you've seen a picture of it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
literally like an image of her, she'd be so embarrassed by that.
yeah,
And she'd be incredibly, I think she'd be incredibly proud of me because
yeah,
she knows what it's like to live in isolation. She knows what it's like
yeah,
to kind of be disregarded by society is a really
yeah,
strong statement. But
yeah,
I know that she has a lot of friends that felt a lot like that. And so
yeah.
she would say, do this with as many grandmas as humanly possible.
Mm.
Like,
It's
yeah.
sorry, like I just thought of like New York, you're walking the street and you're behind a grandma, and sometimes you're annoyed because you're late somewhere and you're trying to get, and for me that's like that shared compassion of just trying to say like, let me just take a deep breath and I'm late to where I'm going, like let me just not let this person feel my pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was in, just a couple of weeks ago, I was in a assisted living home, actually memory
Yeah,
care center. And I just came from New York. And so I'm always on the rush. I'm always walking fast. And then I'm walking through this kind of long memory care center, kind of ping ponging like through a lot of different people. And at first I had that like going around
yeah, yeah,
people, and you don't realize even being 10 feet away from someone on a walker, that stresses them out.
totally.
So day two, day three, day four, I was walking so slow and so calm. And
Yeah,
just to have that perspective, it was good for me even mentally
yeah.
to just kind of slow down. The positive aspects of that are only come from being around people of a
Well,
certain.
Mike, I love that you said that too, just about, just that's what Grandma Stand does. Grandma's just there for that person that's sitting there. It made me just think of, I don't know if you've seen the series A Man on the Inside with Ted Danson. He's still so it's he goes to a memory care and assisted living facility. Anyway, check it out. It's because again, it's about purpose and like what happens in those communities. There's a lot that can be done in these communities. This is awesome. I could keep, well. So, you have any other good news to share with us, or like other exciting things happening about the grandma stand that you want to share?
I mean, the expansion's been really exciting.
Yeah.
Honestly, in the last 3 weeks, we've gotten at least 10 new cities that have at least reached out and said they want to start the grandma stand.
Yeah.
And there's just really cool projects that are happening right now with it. That I can't share too much yet, unfortunately,
Okay.
but there's some really cool stuff that's coming around that really is going to expand the kind of the grandma goodness of the stand. So
yeah, we'll link it to it, and I know it's a 501c3 like you said, so maybe some donations or things like that. So or how can listeners learn more about getting involved or just the efforts of the grandma stand?
Yeah, just go to grandmastand.com. Also on Instagram, just at grandmastand.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where people, if they want to volunteer a grandmother to be part of it, whether it's in New York or anywhere, if a grandma stand opens up in your respective city, then here's a grandma that can volunteer to be part of it. If you want to start a new grandma stand in your city, that's also on the website.
Okay.
And then all the donations go to the materials and the taxis for the grandmas to get to and from the locations. And that's it. And so any support is always appreciated.
Absolutely.
To keep it going.
It's my brain is very funny. It would never be the grandpa stand. I mean, no one would go.
I know. I've had a lot of people ask me, what about the grandpas? And I'm like, it was my grandma Eileen. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they're like, someone had a very New York comment. They just said, what if you had a really just a really grumpy grandpa? And you literally sat down and it was the opposite. It was just like a grandpa saying oh, you're complaining way too much. Just suck it up and do. And I'm like, that's kind of like a grumpy grandpa stand. It's actually really funny.
It would be. Well, there's a few. So I actually came across a social media account. It's called that, Grumpy Old Man or something like that. You should check it out. But it's it would be a different feel. Also from New York is Albert Ellis, which is rationally motive behavioral therapy. So he's no longer with us, but he developed this thing called REBT, which is a cognitive behavioral therapy sort of strategy, which would basically just say, get over it.
Mm-hmm.
So if people were feeling certain kinds of way, he would just call them dysfunctional feelings and just label them as such and move on.
Yeah. And I will say this, of the rotation of grandmas that do appear, some have those traits a little bit too.
Sure.
I think I found that there's a grandma for a particular person on that particular day on that street corner.
Love it.
They needed someone that was a little more just assertive and aggressive.
Yeah.
Whereas someone at the time just needed someone to listen and a little more passive. And so having the different personalities and backgrounds, and it's been really nice because certain people connect with certain grandmas.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we all have a story, and the mission that you have created is really valued. I mean, I think it is. I really wish you continued success. This grandma stand is super cool. It's such a great thing. So, good luck and congrats on everything.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thanks for being here, Mike. And everyone, I hope you have a great 2026. What a way to start 2026 with the grandma stand. So we will be back here next week. So until then, spread a little kindness and stay well.